you, neighbor. And Mr. Chair and Senators. First, I'd like to accept the committee's suggested amendments on page 5 of the analysis and thank the chair and committee staff for their help on the bill. They always make my bills better. AB 1785 updates the 2008 California law that bans sending text-based communications. The existing capabilities of smartphones and devices give drivers the ability to use mobile devices in ways that go beyond texting, such as updating social media, taking selfies, or searching the internet. The bill clarifies that a driver may not use an electronic device that is held in the driver's hand while driving. The driver may only use a device if it is mounted on the dashboard and operated by a single swipe or tap of the driver's finger. This update will provide clarity to law enforcement and the public about what activities are not allowed behind the wheel. The National Highway Transportation Safety Administration reported that 3,328 people were killed and 421,000 people injured in distraction-related motor vehicle crashes in the U.S. in 2012. We also know that vehicle crashes are the leading cause of death for our nation's youth. Of these 3,328 people killed in 2012, 13% or 433 deaths occurred in crashes in which at least one driver was using a cell phone at the time of the accident. By getting the phone or device out of a driver's hand, this bill will improve driver safety and give law enforcement a bright line for upholding this law. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Senator. Witnesses in favor, please.
Chair and members of the committee, Jonathan Feldman with the California Police Chiefs Association. We are in strong support of this bill. This bill is really about making our roads safer right now. Because of the court case in 2014, anytime our officer sees someone using a phone, all they have to say is, you know, I was not communicating with that phone, and we can't prosecute them on anything. Nothing will stand up in court. And it's really upsetting because the phones have caused all these accidents. They've hurt all these people and families, damaged all this property by being the leading cause of distracted driving. Office of Traffic Safety in California estimates that 10% of drivers are texting while driving. And it is the leading cause. And yeah. We do agree that, you know, there is a broader discussion about the behavior and distracted driving in general, but because this is the leading cause and because what this phone does to drivers and how it actually does pull their attention away more than anything else, we think this bill is tailored and specific, and we ask for your support.
Thank you. Other witnesses, please.
Johan Claes, representing Paramedics Plus, Alameda County's 911 EMS ambulance provider. We support the measure. We think this bill closes an unintended loophole that was in the original legislation.
Okay, other witnesses, please.
Shireen Walter with the California State PTA, the Parent Teacher Association, in support.
Thank you. I don't see other witnesses. I'll call for witnesses opposing, please. Any witnesses opposing? Come forward, please. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee. My name is Andrea DeVoe. I'm here today on behalf of TechNet, who represents over 75 of the country's leading technology companies. We are here today to express our concern and unfortunate opposition to AB 1785. We have strong concerns with the way in which the bill is attempting to solve and even define the issue of distracted driving. While well-intentioned, I will outline 4 of our major concerns. First, the bill is targeting specific technological devices and not focused on providing a solution to the well-documented and concerning growth of distracted driving. The bill as drafted is picking winners and losers. Think of it this way: if you're unable to adjust your climate controls, mirror adjustments, cruise control, adjusting your fog lights, or really anything that requires you to remove your hands from the steering wheel because this is not able to be done in a way that is voice activated or one swipe, one tap, then it would be illegal. This is a broader problem and not solving the issue of distracted driving. This is what we are facing. Carve out in-dash technology from the bill, and you are targeting current and future in-car innovation, and it is discriminatory. Include it, and Californians have just lost the ability to use air conditioning in their car. The bill, while perhaps unintentional, seems to favor those that can afford the most up-to-date vehicle with the in-dash technology. It disproportionately has an impact upon drivers of modest means that perhaps are dependent on their wireless phone or device for their job, their income, or to get their family around. Third, to the issue of upholding citations for distracted driving. By just focusing on wireless or electronic communication devices and not focusing on the issue of how to make our roads safer and focusing on driver behavior, AB 1785 falls short of its intention, and in fact, in making the bill more granular, with a dash-mounted one swipe, one tap, the bill could be making it even harder to uphold citations and not solve the problem at hand. Fourth, and finally, the vagueness of the application of this bill is also of concern. How does this apply to wearables, Bluetooth technology, health monitors, or tomorrow's most innovative product that enables us to live better lives? We take the issue of distracted driving very seriously. However, AB 1785 respectfully does not provide the appropriate solution to working to solve the cause and not the symptoms. We together must solve the cause that is driver behavior. We respectfully must oppose 1785 for the reasons stated. We respectfully urge your no vote.
Other witnesses, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Robert Callahan with the Internet Association. Regretfully here, also in opposition, echoing a lot of concerns from TechNet. We've worked with the author's office continuously this year, trying to figure out amendments that would work for us. They've had an open door policy. We don't deny that. And we've really tried our darndest, and we're just not there yet. I think the bill before you today represents an imperfect solution to a very real problem, and we're committed to keep trying to work on it, but we think the current proposal has a lot of flaws in it. First and foremost, the bill picks winners and losers, and the loser is mobile technology. It would ban any interaction, any physical interaction with a mobile device unless you have it in a windshield mount. That is too overbroad. There are many ways you could safely use a mobile device that doesn't involve going and purchasing a windshield mount. That would include a dash mount. That would include potentially having it laid in your cup holder in a way that's just where the buttons and everything are just where your in-dash buttons are. And so from a sort of holistic distraction perspective, that would hopefully be a similarly easy way to have access to the many benefits that come in mobile interconnected technology. So we're not wanting to deny the benefits of mobile navigation or communication that come in today's mobile devices, which are ubiquitous, but we are trying to...
Wrap it up.
Sure, and the other point is that has been made in support of the bill is that there's a current loophole is allowing people to get out of tickets. This bill doesn't close a loophole. I think it would still be sort of riddled with ambiguities and enforcement. If I'm banned from having any physical interaction with it in my hand, if I get pulled over, why was I not moving my phone from my lap to the chair? You couldn't really prove that. And if I have it in the windshield mount,
Can you wrap it up, please?
yeah, if it's in the windshield mount,
Wrap it up, please.
Certainly. Internet Association opposed. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Other witnesses?
Kelly Hitt on behalf of the Computing Technology Industry Association. We echo the comments of TechNet and Internet Association. We're opposed to the bill.
Thank you.
Jeremy Mers on behalf of the California Chamber of Commerce, also in opposition.
Okay. Okay, other witnesses opposing, please? I don't see any. Questions of the committee? Committee questions? Senator Leyva?
Assemblymember Quirk, I appreciate you bringing the bill forward. I know that distracted driving is a real issue. I'm trying to get at why one tap, one swipe? How would a police officer, when they pulled someone over, know that they just tapped it once or swiped it once?
So I am working with the police chiefs and the CPOA, the California Police, and I think they know best, and this is what their suggestion was. Certainly you can look at someone, and if they're putting in more than one tap, I would think you would be able to figure that out. Again, I am looking at this question of what works best for them. And what they told me is that if you pull someone over and they say, oh, I wasn't texting, I was just answering someone on Facebook, they're not going to take you in because the law is read strictly as texting. So they need a bright line. They're saying this is a bright line. That's why we came up with this. There's also an analogy. This is what you do when you're changing a radio station, when you're turning on your air conditioning. So it's analogous to that. That's how that language came up.
Yeah.
Got it. And I do
Also
agree.
taking amendments, so we got the amendments from the committee.
Oh, yeah, amendments
So
are
it
great.
deals with some of the kind of concerns that the,
Yeah, and I do
and-
agree that.
Go ahead.
That there was a problem, if you're responding to an email, that's the same thing as texting. So there was a problem with the law. I was just wondering where that came from, the one tap, the one swipe. So
Again,
you answered it.
analogy- Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're good. Thank you.
Good, all right.
other questions from other members of the committee? Okay. See, Senator Wachowski's texting people at the present time, so he's not driving. Okay. Senator Groff.
So just to clarify, so the amendment, the prohibition now is you're prohibited from driving a motor vehicle while holding and
Yeah, right,
operating a
that's it.
handheld wireless telephone or an
Helps deal with some of their issues.
wireless communication device, right?
Right.
Okay. Other people? Okay. Can you close, please?
Okay. So again, there was a question about the phone mounting. If we can do something with the language here, I'd be glad to look at it. It is very important that the phone be mounted in a way that you're still looking at the road, and that's why it was done that way. If there's something we can do about that language or anything else, I will be glad to continue to work with the opposition. These are my friends, certainly. By the way, the bill does, I'm not sure exactly what I heard here from the first witness, Andrea, but we're not talking about in-car applications at all. That's been taken out of the bill. And there's also this question about why not just talk about distracted driving in general? And the answer is you need to have some bright lines. And I would love to work on a distracted driving bill to look at other behaviors like eating or doing makeup. But what you find is when you try and write a general bill, it becomes very difficult.
Yeah.
So maybe we need one bill on eating and another one on doing your makeup. I don't know. But we actually took things out of this bill just so it could be simpler, just so we could know where the bright lines were. Finally, you can use your wireless phone as long as you have it mounted. You can have it on speaker. You can tap to answer a call. And I do this myself with my wireless mounting phone. I refuse to use the Bluetooth in my car because it's never worked well. So again, this, I think we've come up with the right bill here, and I, again, ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Other questions? Well, do we have a motion on this bill? The recommendation I have is to take the amendments and approve it as amended. The recommendation.
Chairman, ask a question.
Yes, sir. Senator Roth.
So you just confused me a little bit by your last statement. So if the prohibition only applies to those who are holding and operating a phone, does it actually have to be, I realize what the analysis said in the original bill, does it actually have to be mounted somewhere as long as you're not holding it? Could it be sitting in a cup holder?
We said if you wanted to interact with it, and the reason it's not in a cup holder is you don't have a view of the road. And that's why we talked about mounting. There's already, and we do not have language specifically on the mount in the bill. We refer to the mounting as is already in the code. So we refer back to that, which basically says when you're mounting it, you need to have a view of the road. If there's another safe way to do about it, we can talk about it, but that's current law. If you're going to mount it, you need to have a view of the road at the time.
Some of the cup holders are pretty high on the dashboard.
Well, we can work on that. We
I
can
just-
work on the
I guess-
language, and if that's a particular concern, I can certainly work on that.
Well, I guess I'd ask you, as you move out of here, assuming you get out of here, that the prohibition applying to those who are holding and operating is pretty clear, and you might want to take another look at your language. Thank
Okay,
you, Mr. Chairman.
I'd be glad to do that.
Okay, do we have a motion on this? My recommendation is to approve it as amended.
One more question.
One more question, Senator
Okay,
Mendoza.
so following up on Mr. Roth here, can you answer, or can you make a call, can you answer a call if you don't have it mounted?
No, you'd have to have it mounted.
So if I'm driving my phone, and my phone's in the cup holder on my, and it rings, and I pick it up and I tap it green, put it down the cup holder.
Yeah, you're taking your eyes off the road. That would
No.
not be safe.
Can't do that. You have to have it.
But, just mount it. You'll be all
Encourage
set.
safety. The idea is to encourage safety so people, we're just getting too many accidents is what happens. Yeah. Senator Galgiani.
I just want to point out, when I forget my Garmin, I like my Garmin up here because I can talk on the phone and watch and listen at the same time. But when I forget it and I'm renting a car, they have beanbag kind of things that you put a rented Garmin on that, and that's what's used. So it's not mounted,
Right.
but it sits in the beanbag thing. It's very
Sure, I've
safe.
used those same devices.
So just calling that.
As long as you have a view of the road, you should be fine.
Okay. Okay, folks, we need a motion on this item. Anybody?
So moved.
So we had a motion to approve this as amended. We made the amendments, okay, to help these folks. Call the roll, please.
AB 1785, the motion is do pass as amended and refer to the Appropriations Committee. Senators Bell?
Aye.
Bell, aye. Canella?
No.
Canella, no. Allen? Bates? Gaines? Galgiani? Leyva? Leyva, aye. McGuire? Mendoza? Roth? Roth, aye. Wachowski? Wachowski, aye.
You have 4 votes, and we'll hold it open for absent members. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We have Assemblymember Mullen. Very patient man. He is presenting 2. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. AB 1889 will help facilitate the expenditure of previously appropriated Prop 1A funding for projects on the high-speed rail system's bookends. That is including the electrification of Caltrain, a vital transit project on the peninsula and in the South Bay region. The analysis does an excellent job covering the background of the bookend funding issue, and I know that this committee has been closely following it via your role in providing legislative oversight, so I'll focus on what we're seeking to achieve with this bill. As noted, there is ambiguity in how the High-Speed Rail Authority is able to proceed with submitting funding plans in order to commit bond funds for these projects. AB 1889 simply clarifies one important provision of the plans, the, quote, suitable and ready clause. It says that the bookend expenditures are suitable and ready for high-speed train operation and can be funded as the legislature intended in the 2012 budget appropriation. That was SB 1029. This will allow for the near-term mobility benefits in the Caltrain corridor and in the Southern California bookend to be realized. I have a representative of Caltrain with me to speak to the bill today.
Speakers in favor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Matt Robinson on behalf of Caltrain. We're the sponsors of this legislation. AB 1889, as noted in the committee analysis, would help facilitate the distribution of $1.1 billion in funding in Northern and Southern California, known as the bookends, consistent with the commitments that were made by the legislature in 2012 to the passage of Senate Bill 1029. $600 million of that aforementioned $1.1 billion is proposed to fund the electrification of the Caltrain corridor between San Francisco and San Jose. It's infrastructure that will ultimately be used by high-speed rail trains as part of the blended system. In April 2012, Legislative Council issued an opinion that the blended system, as proposed in the authority's business plan, would meet the requirements under the Bond Act for the usable segment. One of those requirements is that the investments made must be suitable and ready for high-speed train operation. This bill would clarify that early investments in the bookends would be suitable and ready for high-speed train operations when the system reaches the bookends, while allowing systems like Caltrain to use the infrastructure in the near term. We have been working with agencies in Southern California to make sure that these investments also help facilitate the expenditure of the $500 million that's proposed down there. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions by anybody? Other witnesses?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Jeremy Smith here on behalf of the State Building and Construction Trades Council. I'd like to associate myself with the previous comments and just add that this is exactly what we were hoping to have happen under this project. It's actual work. It's going to go into putting thousands of construction workers on the job, help the local economy and help the environment, and get this project well on its way. We urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members,
Wait a minute. Senator Galgiani, do you have a question, please?
sorry.
Senator has a question. Hold on.
Yes, I'm probably going to have several as the author of the high-speed rail bond measure.
Okay.
And I was part of all of those discussions that happened back in 2009 or so when former Director of Caltrain, Bob Doty, as you will recall, got permission from the federal government to run a high-speed rail line within the existing Caltrain corridor as part of the system, and that same permission was granted to Southern California for their alignment as well. The way that we crafted the bond measure was to ensure that if money was going to be spent, it would be absolutely part of the high-speed rail system and connected with it and part of it. And we wouldn't allow for the money to be used for a regional rail, commuter rail, if you will, that's called high-speed rail if it's not connected and part of the system. We have to be very cautious about how we amend Prop 1A, and there was always concern that we wanted to be certain that the money wouldn't be used to upgrade Caltrain and then we would never be able to connect it with the high-speed rail system. There's been a great deal of opposition, as you know, to high-speed rail in the Bay Area because of the looks and this and that. And I don't mean to diminish that, but that is the reality. But the other reality is that that money is intended to be part of the system. So my concern is that a brand new definition of deemed suitable and ready might mean that they can use the money even though it's not going to be part of an actual system. Because what happens if, for example, the high-speed rail authority decides that they're going to use the money that we have and continue to Bakersfield, for example, and make that the priority. And maybe there's not the money available right away or in the near future to continue from Gilroy to connect to the Caltrain. Then what happens? Is it that this bill is coming forward because the goal is really to make sure that no matter what, Caltrain gets the money even if it's not going to be part of the high-speed rail system? Sorry, I know that's a...
Thank you very much for the question, Senator. I'm going to turn to Caltrain to give a little bit of perspective on the nexus with regard to the blended system and the import of these early investments in accommodating high-speed rail, the potentiality of that, if Matt wants to speak to that.
Yeah, thank you, Senator Mullen, and thank you, Senator Galgiani. I want to be 100% clear that our intention is not to circumvent the Bond Act in any way. And you were instrumental in drafting that back, going into the early 2000s and ultimately to 2008 when it was passed by the legislature. But you also know that that's a very tricky body of law to navigate through. And we are going to ensure that any of the investments that are made as part of the $600 million that was committed by the legislature will be able to be turned over and or used at the same time by high-speed rail. And really, we're talking about the overhead wiring that will be used on the electrification for the Caltrain corridor, and then the investments in Southern California are still coming together, but they would have to follow the same restrictions on the money. They couldn't just spend it willy-nilly and then have to tear it all out when it was time for high-speed rail to approach. We would need to make sure that that is something that can be used for a true blended system.
Because that is what would happen. You would have to tear it all out. I mean, there are very clear specifications on, there's certain curve radiuses that if they're too sharp, you cannot run the high speeds. Also, there's the fact that the diesel trains are about twice the weight of a high-speed train. So there's a lot of considerations that are beyond my scientific knowledge that I want to be very clear that that Prop 1A is respected. It was not a lot of money. It was $9 billion that was left after the $950 million that was already taken for regional and passenger rail. It leaves us with just $9 billion. That's it.
If I may, Senator, I think Caltrain and High Speed Rail will both be happy to come in and talk to you a little bit about how we're planning on moving this system forward together so that all of the infrastructure, the rolling stock, et cetera, works for both systems.
Is there anybody from the High Speed Rail Authority here today?
Yeah, we have one representative, Senator. Just a second. We'll get him come down here. Okay. Senator, you had a question for the High Speed Rail Authority, or?
Yes, has the High Speed Rail Authority taken a position on the bill? And hopefully you heard the questions that I raised with regard to Prop 1A.
I did, Senator Galgiani. This is Barbara Rooney representing the High Speed Rail Authority. The authority does not have a position on the bill, and I do appreciate your question, as it would be a concern for the authority as well. In terms of trying to advance the investments made in 2012 by the legislature, we are supportive of seeing the necessary changes be made to the statutes to, allow for the directive made by the legislature through those appropriations. In terms of working with Caltrain to ensure that the investments that are made with that $600 million do in fact conform or adhere to the requirement that they will lead to eventual high-speed rail service in that peninsula corridor. We continue to work with Caltrain on that very issue. It's an active dialogue, and we're committed to working with them to make that happen.
One of the other concerns that I have, and I'll share with the author and the members, is that while we for a long time have wanted to see Caltrain connected with the high-speed rail because we can see how that would work, my other concern is because this bill addresses Southern California, correct? Because there have been some commitments to grade separations, underpasses and overpasses, or at least one in Southern California. It seems as under this bill, the way that it's written, that if the money is used as planned today to move from the Central Valley, connect with Gilroy, and up to San Jose, Santa Clara, connect with Caltrain into San Francisco, that's something I'm supportive of. But what happens if, under this bill, then, any projects that are grade separations in Southern California, if they're ready to go, before the main money is ready to be used on this alignment that connects with Caltrain, it seems that under this bill, even a couple $1 billion could be used for grade separations, for example, that are ready to go because they're in the bookend, but they're not actually connected with the high-speed rail system in any way at all.
Yeah, I appreciate your concern. And in terms of addressing the needs of Southern California versus the $500 million going south under the 2012 MOU versus the $600 million going to the electrification project, they are absolutely two separate projects, kind of on different tracks, and they actually all have different issues that I think are exclusive to those projects in terms of meeting the requirements of the Bond Act, the provisions of the D plan. So they all absolutely sort of have different, while a project may be teed up and ready, for example, the Caltrain project, they've already gone through their environmental, and I'll let Matt speak to how far along they've come, but they are pretty far along in the process. And again, there are a few projects in Southern California, as I understand, grade separation projects that are moving along quite nicely. But in order to meet the funding plan requirements of a SoCal project are actually different than the funding plan requirements in Northern California. I hope that helps provide a little more clarification.
There isn't enough money to do both. There's, as you know, there's enough money to either get to Gilroy and connect with Caltrain, or to continue to Bakersfield and head that way, or do something in Southern California. We are far from having enough money to do all of it. So the concern is that if bookends are both ready to go, and there's nothing to connect them, it's not a high-speed rail system. It's not a system if we have a grade separation in Southern California, and we have Caltrain, and then we have a stranded system, if you will, in the Central Valley that's not connected to any job center. Then you've got pieces, but you don't have anything that's whole. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to support the bill today.
All right. Any other, I guess I'm the only one here. The only point I want to make is that, we have a tentative plan in Santa Clara County for our half-cent sales tax will be on November ballot. And I think we got a $1.1 billion for Caltrain to go all the way to Gilroy. We want to complete the project. We're kind of no nonsense. We just, we got to do it. We got to do it. So we're going to go do it all the way to Gilroy. And we want to connect to the high-speed rail and any lines that go to other counties, Monterey, other kinds of counties. So we're pretty much on schedule to do all those projects. Pretty much. That's what we're doing. And we should get it passed. Polls look good. I hope. So you're not going to make a motion, right? Okay, we'll wait until we have a member that can make a motion. Okay, thank you. Okay, Assembly Member, you're presenting on behalf of your colleague. Is that understanding? Is that correct? So you're presenting AB 2441?